Despite Nocturne screaming that they can't leave him behind, his replacement arrives, a being called the Sasquatch. Issue 11 takes place before that arc, basically a humorous little romp for character development between Morph and Sunfire, where we learn more about their backstories. In particular, we learn that Sunfire is estranged from her family, both because of her powers and because she's a lesbian. Moving on to the greater plot though, in issue 12 we get a better look at Sabretooth from before, and how he's leading his own team of exiles called Weapon X. They're made up of him, a version of Spider-Man called the Spider, who's basically mostly a symbiote, Storm, Vision, She-Hulk, or in her case, just the Hulk, and Deadpool. The thing is that the exiles try to do their tasks without resorting to more unsavory tactics. Weapon X, however, is more than happy to kill and maim to accomplish their goals. They've also lost more members. See, they call themselves Weapon X because their team was made up of people who had been in the Weapon X program. That's the thing that made Deadpool Deadpool and gave Wolverine his adamantium, in case you didn't know. But now, obviously, that's not the case. This Sabretooth is the same one who helped raise Blink in the Age of Apocalypse, so apparently Age of Apocalypse just has all the screwed up time stuff. Sasquatch also changes form to reveal she's a woman named Heather Hudson. She's a more permanent member of the cast for a while, a scientist who made a deal with a supernatural beast called Tanorak, although she doesn't remember making the deal. Also, Nocturne lost her baby off-panel. There's no explanation given how she lost the baby. I figure it's probably to do with wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey antics with Thunderbird gone and crap, but the important thing is that there's no better way to handle such a traumatic event than to have it happen off-panel. Good one, Judd Winnick. We'll put that success right alongside pointlessly killing Omen in Graduation Day. Speaking of, yeah, Judd Winnick. I've bashed a lot of his work before, but honestly, Exiles is one of the things that shows he is a good writer under the right circumstances. Much like Titan/Young Justice Graduation Day, there's a bit of a sarcastic edge to the narrative captions, but here it feels less out of place because of the way the book has been presented to us, with a mixture of drama and humor, versus Graduation Day, where it was supposed to be this depressing, serious book where the narration was just tone deaf. Anyway, the reason why both teams are here is because it's a pretty big job that requires them both. This world has been overrun by Sentinels. Its only hope is David Richards, whose grandparents are Mr. Fantastic, Sue Storm, Jean Grey, and Scott Summers. Also, with this family tree, I fully expect Sonic the Hedgehog is in there somewhere. He's just a little kid now, living in a prison camp. They're able to bust in and free all the kids in the camp, but they soon discover that's not all they have to do. See, their mission is actually to kill David Richards. In time, yes, he would free the world from the Sentinels, but raised in an environment of constant deceit, hatred, fear, punishment, and confinement, he'll eventually use his power to enslave the world. When they get into a fight over it, the Time Broker steps in to explain the deal. Weapon X's job is to kill the kid. The Exiles were just here to free him. They can't think of any other way of solving this, but Sabretooth does. After killing Deadpool, though, because everyone gets a turn killing Deadpool. He'll stay behind in this reality to raise David and the other freed kids, hopefully steer them to something better. Following that is a two-parter that's more action-focused for the most part, needing to stop an alternate reality Namor from invading the world via Latveria. Character-wise, it starts showing how troubled Mimic is with all this. Seeing people he considered friends and allies acting like assholes is a bit frustrating, especially when it keeps on happening over and over. The next issue basically is there to fill in the details of the romance between Nocturne and Thunderbird. It's still not exactly clear how she lost the baby, but hey, at least we get details about how they got together. Because filling in character development after that character has died is a great strategy. I'm being snarky because, well, me, but honestly, this is well-written stuff. They next end up on a world where a lot of the West Coast has been overrun by lizard people created by Dr. Kurt Connors. They're there to prevent a bomb from going off and wiping out the lizards, done by Kurt Connors himself, who turned human again long enough to try to end his mistake. The parallel is set up between him and Mimic, only wanting to do good but ending up doing terrible things. Issues 18 and 19 see the team dealing with the interdimensional TV mogul, yes, seriously, comics are weird, Mojo, but fortunately they escape, the Time Broker promising them that he won't interfere again lest his own reality collapse in on itself. Next up is a three-parter that has a bit of a complicated backstory, so I'll save it for now. Needless to say, the world is overrun by a techno-organic virus assimilating people, with the main thing to take away from this is how Sunfire bonds with Spider-Woman of this reality, aka Mary Jane Watson. The really clever thing is how they resolve the situation. Initially, they thought they needed Patient Zero's blood for the infection to create an antidote to the living machine virus, but Morph recognizes that on world after world they visited, there seemed to be a distinct lack of Thor and the other Norse gods. As such, he manages to use the psychic abilities of one of the heroes of this world to contact them and plead for help, which of course they're only too happy to give. Unfortunately, the celebration is short-lived. At the end, the Time Broker appears with a new team member, Illyana Rasputin, the sister of Colossus. No, nobody has died, but Blink has finished fixing her personal timeline and is sent home. Well, it's pretty sad to see her having to go like this. I mean, it's full of emotion and heart and heartache. So, let's check in and see how Weapon X are doing, eh? Oh, goody! A three-parter where they're helping a malevolent, power-hungry Tony Stark finish taking over the world, of course. In the intervening time, Sabretooth has been replaced by a version of Gambit and have added on a more jerky version of Angel. Vision is also starting to look a bit worse for wear, though I suppose that'll happen when you're an android hopping from universe to universe. You don't really get much time to buff and wax the paint job. They lose their version of the Hulk to the negative zone, replaced by a version of Colossus. Their actions actually inadvertently lead to Stark's death, but a lot of people die along the way. It's also the end of Winnick's run as a writer on the book, completing after 25 issues. Not a bad run for modern comics, but hey, fresh blood for a book is always fun. The guy who ended up taking it over, though, is yet another controversial writer, Chuck Austin. We haven't talked about him in a long while, but longtime viewers may recall him as the guy who wrote a story where an evil religious group tried to make Nightcrawler the Pope, a plan so idiotic that for the longest time it was the standard by which I measured moronic villain schemes. Austin does have his issues with Exiles, but honestly, most of his stuff is decent, and introduces elements that will very much pay off down the road. He's off to a good start with issue 26. In this world, the Heroes for Hire, normally run by Luke Sweet Christmas Cage, is an international organization that employs every superhero in the world. Japan is about to get royally screwed over, with the entire country destroyed and their culture extinguished within 10 years. According to the Talus, the Avengers are supposed to die trying to save Japan, and their job is to ensure Japan isn't saved. Sunfire does not take this well, but Mimic has been beaten down by all these recent events, especially losing Blink, and now he only wants to get home. Magic is all too happy to let it happen too, introducing a dynamic to the team that didn't really exist. She's the one among the group who actually argues with them and has looser morals. Although even Mimic admits that he's already compromised his morals 1,000 times over and just wants the Exiles thing to be a bad dream. However, as Sunfire puts it, it's not a bad dream. It's a bad reality, and they either need to decide right then and there if they're gonna be like Weapon X and just do whatever the hell they're told, or do what they know is right and define themselves as heroes. The group splits off to do their own thing, trying to prevent the destruction of Japan in their own way. Magic is sent off to talk to the Avengers and explain the situation, but she instead goes off to kill the Avengers. By the way, this also leads to one of my favorite panels ever. The villain who's here to destroy Japan encounters Sunfire, Morph, and Nocturne, who declare that they're gonna help the people already hurt by him. Ah, I see. You weren't asking for my help. Rather, you were threatening me with some misguided declaration of heroism. That's Captain Misguided Declaration of Heroism to you, pal. His sidekick is Hyperbolic Reaction to Situation Boy. This universe's Colossus, who was a member of the Avengers, decides to help Magik if only because he has to believe his sister, murderous or not. And it's probably fortunate that Magik did do it, because the others were getting their asses kicked. The mission is successful and they move on, and onto the Exiles' first encounter with the main Marvel Universe, aka Earth 616 as it's usually referred to in comics. Unfortunately, it's kinda crap. See, as I said, we last met Chuck Austen when he was writing the Uncanny X-Men, and this is a crossover with his Uncanny X-Men book. It starts off weird already because the Time Broker doesn't just explain everything to them through the Talus, but brings them back to the desert. He also mentions other Time Brokers, which really goes against the whole manifestation of the subconscious thing, although even Mimic had earlier stated that he doesn't buy that explanation anymore. It's a long story about Havoc being the nexus of all realities or some bullcrap, and having an evil alternate self who replaces him when he briefly dies. I don't know, it's convoluted even for this book, and somehow involves a subplot about werewolves or something. I don't know, like I said, it's just really rushed and lame. The only long-term thing with this is that Nocturne bonds with Nightcrawler, but since I mentioned werewolves a bit ago, we've got more Halloween ghoulies in our next outing, the two-part Avengers Forever. A Captain America villain who hasn't made the leap yet to the movies is Baron Blood, who totally should. Why? Because he's a vampire. A Nazi vampire, even, which gives him a +2 villain bonus for wanting us to see him get his ass kicked. In the 616 universe, Baron Blood tried to bite Captain America's neck, but was saved by the chainmail in his costume. In this reality, not so much, so Cap is now a vampire here, and turned the other Avengers into vampires too. The Talus is back to being vague, saying they have to stop the Vampire King from releasing the enchantment that will enslave a city. Magik is starting to piss off the others more and more, especially Mimic, since she's always the one who wants to go to the quick and easy kill him and move on route. They defeat the Vampire Avengers, including a vampirized Union Jack, and start teleporting away, but Union Jack is a bit of a sore loser, using a spell to smash their teleport, sending the Exiles into different universes for some character growth. Heather and Morph end up in a reality where Wolverine only recently escaped from the Weapon X program, so he's more feral than ever. We see Heather's backstory from her reality, how she ended up with Wolverine in her world, and how that Wolverine wore this costume.
There. Sure glad I don't look stupid in this.
Anyway, she and Morph survive and are teleported away. Nocturne and Sunfire end up back in the universe with the techno-organic virus, allowing Sunfire to hook back up with Mary Jane Watson again. And while Morph and Heather were only in that world for one night, the two spend 6 weeks there, with Sunfire and Mary Jane, of course, getting very close. And then the two getting teleported. Magik got off the luckiest, just ending up in the middle of an ocean for 10 minutes. Mimic arguably got it the worst, 6 months in a world completely overtaken by the Brood, basically the Marvel equivalent of the Xenomorphs from Alien. Although in the Marvel universe, the Brood, Colonial Marines, is considered to be the best game ever made. The Time Broker brings them all back together and onto a world where the Fantastic Four are just now getting created, with only the instructions, "Don't let anyone die." Considering so many of their missions have involved stabbing people, they're kind of out of their element. The job is easier said than done, since in this version, Ben Grimm's transformation into the Thing makes him more like the Hulk. And unfortunately, much like how this is the beginning of the Fantastic Four in this universe, it doesn't have any other superheroes yet to help stop him. Things are not made any better when Mimic is knocked aside hard while out of his Colossus mode. He reveals to Heather that he wasn't in the Brood reality for 6 months, but 4 years, and he's already been implanted by Brood eggs that will transform him into one. His healing factor was fighting them off, but with the damage to his body, that suddenly became a priority and he starts transforming. Fortunately, they at least get the Thing under control so he's able to come help, but the damage is done before they're able to cure Mimic. While he was under Brood control, Mimic kills Sunfire. However, much to the amazement of the others, the new teammate who arrives to replace her is Blink. Let's cut away from them for a bit, though, and back to Weapon X. Really really feels like some wires got crossed, since the Colossus who joined them before is more of the heroic type, not wanting to resort to killing. Still, they've also swapped out their Angel for a more psychotic Miss Marvel, but on this latest excursion, Storm dies. She's replaced by Hyperion, aka Superman if we want to have crossovers with DC that aren't really crossovers. And this is the turning point for a lot of storylines in Exiles. This reality just saw the death of the X-Men at the hands of the Sentinels, but Weapon X isn't concerning itself with that, just recovering from everything that recently happened to them. However, both the Spider and Hyperion are beginning to wonder, what happens if they say no to the Time Broker, actively refuse to try to fix things? And then Miss Marvel and Hyperion bang. Surrounded by dead bodies. So if Hyperion is the equivalent of Superman, then clearly we have found Frank Miller's Hyperion. They learn their mission, to kill the 10 remaining mutants in this world, but Hyperion decides that no, they're not going to do that. Instead, they're going to take over the world themselves. Vision refuses, so Hyperion destroys him, making the same offer to the others. The Spider has his priority straight. Which option means I don't get to kill 10 mutants? Can I at least kill some random humans to make up for it?
Sure, more than 10 if you like.
You the man! I like this guy. What's your name again? So, hey, I guess Deadpool didn't die after all. Hyperion takes out the Sentinels and soon murders the President of the United States, basically allowing him and his forces to take over. Unfortunately, it's a bit for naught. Magneto had sent Asteroid M down to crash onto Earth as an extinction event to wipe out all of humanity, while he and his forces left for greener pastures. They fail to stop the asteroid, which wipes out most of the Earth, although the remaining Weapon X forces and mutants go up to the rest of Asteroid M, still in orbit, to figure out their next move, which in Hyperion's eyes is, well, kill the rest of the mutants and try this again in the next reality. The next two issues go more into Nocturne's backstory, basically serving as flashbacks to talk about her life before the Exiles, and how she was once part of a garage band called Butt Monkey. But let's get things back in order with Blink and the Exiles. Morph is really damn pissed at Mimic. Despite knowing that they were never going to be a thing, he was in love with Sunfire, so he blames Mimic for this, figuring that if he knew he had a brood egg inside of him, he should have killed himself. Mimic is, of course, not exactly in a great mood over what he's done, blaming himself too. Most of the first of this three-parter is character stuff, making Magic more sympathetic, Blink explaining that she was sent to the same world Sabretooth was left in. However, they found themselves in quite a pickle now, as they meet up with Gambit from Weapon X. Gambit started lying to Hyperion about their missions to try to keep them distracted, while he and new recruits Hulk and Firestar go and do the job they needed to do so they could get home. But eventually, Hyperion caught on, shooting off Gambit's arm and a fight breaking out. Gambit's been waiting in the sewers for a month. The only instruction his Talus has been saying is, wait. However, the Talus has finally given him instructions. Of the 12 from the Exiles and Weapon X, only 6 can move on. The rest must die. Gotta love any competition where the reward is just as bad as losing. In the months since Hyperion took over, he's killed a bunch of superheroes and taken over Manhattan, threatening to destroy it if the president doesn't relinquish control of the country to him. The Talus is basically realizing that having 2 teams was a mistake. Seems more like having megalomaniacal supermen on the team is what did you in, but moving on. They come up with a plan to stop Hyperion without killing anyone, but Magic opts to join Hyperion, believing that the only way they can get home is to obey the instructions of the Talus. Unfortunately, when she explains all this to Hyperion, he just kills her and the Weapon X Hulk, figuring he'll try his chances again on another world. They take the fight to Hyperion, but he's clearly too much for them, and we learn why Hyperion's not really in a rush to go back to his reality. He killed all the other superpowered beings in his, even killed Galactus. And then humanity basically nuked Earth, killing everyone except for him. He's alone there, and all he felt out of it was boredom. Finally, it's down to Blink, who uses her teleportation powers so that Hyperion literally shoots himself in the back. Gambit gives off the final move, stabbing Hyperion's injured form with an explosive saber and blows him apart. The Time Broker appears to let Morph know his timeline is now corrected and he can leave, but he volunteers to stay, deciding that the Exiles are now his family, and that he forgives Mimic for what happened. With this, the remaining 5 exiles are given 24 hours to rest before their next mission and their new recruit. And a new creative team, as Tony Bedard comes on as the writer, and with him, the last quarter of today's part of the retrospective. Said new recruit is Beak from the 616 Marvel Universe. Beak does not have any special powers. He's a teenager who looks like a chicken and is married to a fly woman and has 5 kids with her, characters introduced during Grant Morrison's run on X-Men. Well, actually, I tell a lie. Their first new recruit is Namora, a female version of Namor. The Talus simply says, "Leave your possessions and earn your wings," which is basically a flowery version of saying, Nocturne will stay behind and you get Beak. Yep, Nocturne, for whatever reason, would go on to join the book New Excalibur, because why not make the X-Men even more complicated by adding in Nightcrawler's daughter from a parallel universe? Namora, like her main universe counterpart, is an arrogant hothead, assuming superiority over everything around her. She's willing to kill, but she's more open to other options than magic was. Then again, she also eventually conquered the Earth in her reality, so she's got that going for her. After an issue where Morph's comic relief saves the day, we get Exiles' 50th issue. And it's 51st, since it's a 2-parter, where they have to reform the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants to spring Big M from prison. They of course assume that means Magneto, but in reality, it's this world's version of Mimic. And it's all a lie. The psychic named Destiny was able to predict the Exiles' arrival and had Mystique swap places with her. They want to free Mimic with their help, but once he does get out, he uses psychic abilities he borrowed from Xavier to read the Exiles' Mimic's mind, and realizes that the only difference in life between the two was that when Xavier offered him a better life, he said no instead of yes, keeping him in prison and away from all the great things he could have had. And so, Big M instead went by his example and remade himself, founding a new X-Men-esque school. The 2-parter afterwards doesn't do much for character development either, with a universe where the Earth is becoming a sapient being thanks to an interaction with Ego the Living Planet. Comic books, everybody! But that's more in line with Tony Bedard's style. The book during this era feels more like a traditional superhero series, with less focus on introspection and more on letting the situations dictate character direction. It's not an inferior approach, it's just a different way of doing things than what had gone before. And there's still character development going on. What does solve the situation with the living Earth is Beak, talking about being separated from his children and the fear of losing them. Blink even gets to speak to 2 Celestials, giant cosmic beings in the Marvel Universe, and they have a warning for her. Beware the Time Breaker. He is not what he seems. Wait a second. Do you mean the guy who claimed to be a figment of their collective consciousness, despite that making absolutely no sense? Isn't that? The next one is a humorous done-in-one about the butterfly effect, the idea of a butterfly flapping its wings causing a tornado on the other side of the world. In this case, the Talus orders them to buy the last cheese Danish in a store, and doing so results in a chain of events that prevents Earth from being invaded by the Shi'ar villain Deathbird. However, their immediate arrival into the next universe transforms all of them. The 6 become integrated into a sword and sorcery world, their memories gone of their past lives. Fortunately, their version of Spider-Man is there to explain. The area has been transformed into this world by a magician named Kulan Gath, but he's not in charge anymore. Gath transformed superpowered beings into monstrous servants, but when he tried to do that to Ghost Rider, it just unleashed the demon inside of him named Zarathos, who took over and is keeping things maintained on a larger scale. Gath himself is now working with Spider-Man to undo this, and they restore the group to normal. However, Heather is reluctant to transform back into Sasquatch, feeling something is wrong if she were to try to do it here. And we soon find out why. When she does transform, she instead becomes the great beast Tanorak. As I said before, she didn't remember making the deal with it, assuming it was radiation that caused the transformation, but now the beast is in control. And Tanorak's not nice. In their first mission with him, they were supposed to stop some scientists from accidentally igniting the Earth's atmosphere, something that could be accomplished with a conversation, and Tanorak just goes and kills them all. Aww, it feels like magic's back on the team. Good times. Tanarak wants to return to his own reality to conquer it, but doesn't think it's worth following the Time Broker's games if there's a faster way. He recruits supervillain scientists in this reality to help, since the Talus says they have 21 hours before the next reality, but Beak is sent by the other Exiles to contact Alpha Flight for help. While the scientists work, the Exiles discuss the fact that something seems weird. The Time Broker usually appears to them when they stray from a mission, but he hasn't shown up yet to talk about Tanarak, and the missions they've been sent on have been more vague than usual. With the help of Alpha Flight's shaman, they separate Heather from Tanarak, who in turn is taken by the great beasts of this reality, who are not happy with him. The next dimension hop, though, brings us to the beginning of our next big shakeup. Once again, they arrive in the reality Sabretooth and Blink lived in, but Sabretooth is on the run from a bunch of others, and Heather is gone. Long story short, when Blink rejoined Sabretooth in this world, Sabretooth had helped raise David into a better person, along with all the other kids, but unfortunately he was still just a bad seed, and David swore to take over the Earth, using his mental abilities to take control of Blink and use her powers to kill people. Sabretooth had to kill him to save her and any other innocent humans. But now things start to get weird. The Talus says the mission here is to kill Mimic. Hell, even the Timebreaker shows up to goad Sabretooth into killing him, but he refuses. The Time Broker just continues to grin evilly about this whole thing, and he says they'll be punished for disobeying. Leading into the final two issues we'll discuss: their return to the Age of Apocalypse. It's actually one of those times when an event actually tied in nicely to what was going on in the book. Marvel was celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Age of Apocalypse storyline, so the issues could serve the greater story in Exiles while also contributing to the celebration. Beak is taken off the team with little explanation and replaced with Holocaust, the son of Apocalypse. The Time Broker says their mission is to kill the X-Men before they inadvertently doom this world, but Holocaust doesn't play ball, just flying off to do his own thing. He detects the M'Kron Crystal, a MacGuffin in the Marvel Universe said to be the Nexus of Realities, which I thought was Havoc, but whatever. Basically, it's an intersection of various universes. Holocaust intends to use it to conquer other dimensions, but one of the scientists working on it says they detected a resonance signal similar to the crystal. That signal is, in fact, the Talus. Holocaust believes that by using the Talus, they can teleport inside the crystal and travel to the Time Broker's location, something the Age of Apocalypse version of Beast had done to go to another universe. The Time Broker even appears to Namora to try to get her to fulfill the mission, but she ignores him. He does the same again when Magneto attacks them, goading Holocaust on, but Namora convinces him to stay his hand and not do what he wants. They succeed in teleporting into the crystal, and wind up inside a hallway made of crystal, ending issue 61. And that's where we're ending for now. Tune in next time for a world tour of some of Marvel's various lines, more character deaths and rebirths, and the truth behind the Time Broker. Or should I say, Time Breakers.
I have seen another world. I know they exist. There's so much more at stake here than our own paltry vendettas. We'd better get moving. After all, we have a job to do. Just kidding!